One of the first things I bought when I first started practicing the craft was a deck of tarot cards. Tarot cards are incredibly fun, and I think a lot of witches are definitely attracted to tarot and oracle cards. I recently did a video about the oracle cards that I own and how I relate to them, so I thought I'd do the same thing with the tarot deck. But before I dive into that, hi, I'm Sandra from MysteryWitchSchool.com. If you're new to the channel and you want to learn more about Wicca and witchcraft, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so that you don't miss any videos. My first tarot deck was the Greek Tarot by Juliet Sharman-Burke. I've had this tarot deck, since about 1990 or something. I can't remember exactly what year it was. It was my first deck, and I had the choice between this deck and the Waite-Smith deck. And this deck is probably the one that you have most likely come across when you see tarot cards being used in the movies. It's often this deck or the Marseilles deck. And the reason why I chose this deck at the time was because I was coming out of having a very strong Christian background, and I still had a bit of fear around the tarot cards. I was told growing up that it was bad luck to have tarot cards in the home. And as much as I was attracted to them, and we had a deck of these in the home because my sister was into this stuff before I was, and she's 5.5 years older than me. So she had a tarot deck that was the Waite-Smith deck many years before. I gravitated more towards these because they just seemed friendlier to me. They didn't seem to be as harsh. They do have a more mythical approach and a more pagan approach, and I think that's also what attracted me. The Waite-Smith deck does come from Waite's Christian background and his Christian connection, so there is more Christian imagery in the Waite-Smith pack, whereas these had a more pagan. These are based on Greek mythology. So you've got characters on these cards from Greek mythology, Hecate being one of them. You've got the Graces, you've also got the Fates in here. It's a great deck to work with if you're working with the Greeks. So this was the deck that I worked with first for a very long time, and I still work with it. If I'm doing any kind of work with Hecate and I want to do any kind of divination, this is the deck that I work with her because it is connected to the Greek. With my Waite-Smith deck, I bought it because when you're learning the tarot, you're going to find that pretty much most tarot books out there are going to be around this deck. It helps to have this deck when you're learning the cards, just for that reason that you can relate what's written in the book to the actual deck itself. It's a great training deck. It is also good if you are studying the Kabbalah or any of the more magical traditions in the West, because it is connected to the magical traditions of Western esotericism. So there's a lot of really good occult imagery in these cards. They are quite meaty when it comes to imagery. So they are definitely worth looking at, but they can be a bit more complex because they are coming more from a more abstract space than, say, the decks that are based on various mythologies. One of the next decks that I explored in my early days was a deck that I rarely see now. In fact, I haven't seen it for a long time. It is a deck by Caitlin and John Matthews, and it's the Arthurian Tarot. And this is based on the Arthurian myths and stories and characters. And it was one of my favorites, especially back in the 90s when I was really studying for the first time and being a part of covens. This deck was a deck that I really loved to explore and study and use for both divination as well as spiritual work, because you can get, or you could get, companion books with this deck that wasn't just about, these are the card meanings. There was also books on how you could actually go deeper with in journeys with these cards. So they were a really, really good deck to work with when I first started out, and I still use this deck from time to time as well. One of the later decks I came across eventually was the Thoth deck. So this is the Crowley deck. with the artwork by Lady Frida Harris. These cards can be energetically quite confrontational because they really do get into the depths of universal truths. It's not the best deck to start with because the pip cards or the minor arcana don't have action photos of people doing things on them to help stimulate knowing what the card means, or even stimulating your intuition. But there's other ways that these cards stimulate intuition, and that's more through using the geometry and colour to stimulate the intuition. So if you're somebody who is able to work well with abstraction, with geometry and with colour, then you may find you really resonate with these cards. Another deck that I got very, very early, was given to me, is Alan Cannon Reed's The Witch's Tarot. Again, this is a deck I have not seen around these days. It is a very beautiful deck. It's based on the Kabbalah from a pagan perspective, particularly a witchcraft perspective. So the meanings of these cards are a little different. The suits in this deck are also different to the normal tarot. In tarot, you'll generally have the swords being equal to the element of air and wands being equal to the element of fire. In this deck, it's the other way around. Wands are air and swords are fire. So if you're working with this deck, you've got to think a little bit differently. But I find that the cards really stimulate intuition on a very, very deep and profound level. I like to work with these cards for magic, and I like to work with these cards when I'm really looking for something deep that connects me really on that deep, profound level. It's almost impossible to even bring words to how these cards can speak to you. So I don't use these cards a lot for divination for other people. I use them more for my own personal work. And lastly, I have here the Gilded Tarot by Kiro Marchetti. And this is a deck that you're going to see a lot probably around at the moment because it is very popular and the artwork's just absolutely gorgeous. I like using these for divination for other people. I haven't used them for spell work yet, so I don't know what they're like for spell work. But I'm still connecting with these cards because these are my most recent purchase. But I just love the colours of these cards and the imagery on these cards. They are definitely fun to work with from a divinatory point of view. So when it comes to using my cards, there are cards that I'm more likely to use for divination, and there's cards that I'm more likely to use for magic. And it really depends on the magic I'm doing, which deities I'm working with, and how I feel and resonate with the cards at the time. Like I said, with the Witch's Tarot, I tend to see those cards as being really potent in energy for deeper and profound readings, spiritual readings, and also for magic. I find the Gilded Tarot good for divination. Working with divination for other people, I like to work with the Rider, well, it used to be the Waite Rider pack, now it's the Waite Smith pack. I like to work with that one. I also will work with the Greek Tarot for reading for other people as well. When it comes to working with magic or working with more philosophical truths, I also find that the Thoth deck is good for that as well. When you get multiple tarot packs, experiment with which ones feel right for doing certain things. If you're reading for other people and you do have a number of different packs that you use to read for people, and you're reading for people in person, you can even ask that person to choose which pack they want you to read from. That can help with your readings as well and tune you into the energy of that person. They're my tarot decks. If you enjoy these videos and you want to support the channel, I do have a donation option in the description field below the video. If you like the video, hit the like button, share it with your friends. Don't forget to subscribe. I'm Sandra from MysteryWitchSchool.com. Blessed be.